Hello, everyone, and welcome to In-House Counsel Insights, which brings together in-house attorneys in a range of practice areas to share experiences and tricks of the trade. On today's show is Talia, Damrow, Corporate Counsel and Manager, Human Resources at Space Exploration Engineering. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Did I get the pronunciation right, or did I butch that?
Yeah.
I got it right? Amazing. Okay, wonderful. What does Space Exploration Engineering do?
Space Exploration Engineering, or SEE, or C, as we call ourselves because it's quicker. We do, I shouldn't say we, I don't do this, but the rest of the company does space mission design. So designing orbits, trajectories, all of that to get your rocket into space and your satellite doing what it needs to be doing.
Okay, very interesting. Burgeoning industry right now for sure. A lot of that stuff in Texas. Where are you guys located?
We are actually fully remote. The company is technically based out of Maryland, and about half the company's in Maryland, but we've got folks, I'm in Montana. We've got folks in Colorado, a couple in Texas, Florida, California, Washington, Ohio, and now Iowa. We just hired someone in Iowa. So we've got folks all over, and North Carolina.
That's great. That's great. And you also have in your title Manager Human Resources. Remind me, are you like the only in-house attorney at this company? Are you managing everything?
Yes, that is correct. I'm doing it all. Wear a lot of hats.
That's a pretty common setup. That's exactly how when I went from outside counsel to in-house counsel, I was general counsel, chief operating officer, which I think were the titles, but that also meant that I was essentially in charge of all the hiring and firing and employment compliance and all that. So yeah, that's a lot of stuff, a lot of the day-to-day things. Let's go to your background, everything. Were you always a kind of employment, nuts and bolts, corporate counsel? Is that how you started?
No, actually, I was just a general litigator. I started my practice in Billings, Montana, and I did a lot of insurance defense. It's Montana, so you get a lot of different cases. It's not just one thing. But I would say about 25% of my practice over the years became just sort of outside general counsel for smaller companies that didn't have maybe the capacity to have an in-house attorney. And I would advise them on employment issues, review contracts, all sorts of different, whatever they needed, basically advice on.
And that's I think that's natural. That's how it happened for me too. Now, were you in a firm that allowed for that allowed you to do that kind of more transactional work, or were there other attorneys that you could have sent it to, but you just kind of did it yourself? Like, what was the dynamic on that?
So I would say I worked at 3 different firms over about 7 or 8 years. The first firm was purely insurance defense litigation, and then the second firm was small. It was just me and one other attorney, and she's really my mentor.
Okay.
And, she had a similar practice where she had general counsel work, and then I would join in with her on that, and then I started to develop my own book of business. And then the last firm I worked at was also very much insurance defense, but they allowed me to continue that work, and I brought on a few more clients, and there were a few other attorneys in the firm who did that, so I had some support in that regard too.
Right. I did too, kind of learning that different practice area, but I take it you had to consciously decide with those clients, I'm willing to learn corporate work, and I'm willing to learn this stuff and be an outside general counsel, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that came from developed because a lot of those clients either I knew them, or they were clients on an insurance defense matter, and they sort of were like, hey, we've got all these other issues. Can you help us with this? And you sort of develop a soft spot maybe for the client, or a good relationship where you want to keep working with them. And so I think it was more just like I liked the clients and I wanted to keep working with them. So I would learn areas that they needed so that I could continue to do that.
Fantastic. And C was one of those clients, right?
Right. Yeah. So I started doing work for C in, I think it was like December of 2019-ish. They had me come in and start doing contracts that there's 4 owners, and it was just too much for them to be reviewing all these contracts, and they didn't always know. So I started with contract review, and then it sort of developed into additional, I would actually sit in and negotiate contracts for them. And then I would review employment things and offer letters and that sort of thing. It just sort of ballooned into a lot more work that I was doing for them.
How was managing litigation and transactional work?
I mean, there was what I kind of did is I would always consciously set aside like 5 hours a week.
Right.
They like, whether it's Monday, I'm gonna do 2, and then Thursday I'm gonna do 3 or something like that. I would kind of either I wouldn't necessarily put it on my calendar, but I would make sure I had that space available in case they needed something. That was how I did it. I don't, yeah, that's the best advice I would have for that. Is that just like basically like calendaring the time for yourself?
It's excellent advice, because essentially what you just said is you were controlling your calendar rather than letting your calendar control you.
I try to. As much as you can in litigation.
Yeah, it's hard. You got to make some exceptions. But so go ahead and tell us. So how did you transition from the outside firm life to working with this one client?
Yeah, so I had a few years ago, I had a trial in, it was in December in northeastern Montana, and I had a 4-month-old whom I was breastfeeding, and so I had to take her with me. And it was kind of through that. It was a week-long trial. I had to ask for extra breaks from the court to go back to our Airbnb and get milk to her and all that stuff. And I just realized this is not really what I want to be doing while I have little kids. I have another daughter who's older than her, and it just became, in that moment I realized this is probably not very manageable, and if we want to have more kids, it's not going to get any easier. So a few months after that, I started to kind of look at going. I was kind of actually looking at shifting into like some sort of role where I could just write briefs and maybe in court as much, and that wasn't going to be doable at the firm I was at. So I had an offer from somewhere else to do something kind of like that, and then I let SEE know, hey, I've got this offer. I'm probably, if I take it, which I'm planning on, I won't be able to do your work anymore because they'll be my only client, and I won't have the same flexibility I have now. And I said, but if you guys wanted to bring on someone in-house, in addition to what I'm doing now, I have a bunch of other capabilities that might be helpful to you. And so they thought that sounded like a good idea and went ahead and sent me an offer within a few days.
That's awesome. So you made yourself your own job, essentially, thinking outside the box, right?
Yeah.
They can't read your mind. They wanted you. They wanted to have the job, but you almost needed to like frame it, and then they were like, "Yeah, let's do it."
Yeah, I mean, they're looking at, well, how much are we spending a month on legal fees? It probably doesn't make sense. But then when I came in and said, well, I can take on all of your managing like your unemployment insurance and all of your insurance and all of that stuff, and they were kind of like, well, was that a useful time for the owners, useful use of their time for the owners to be doing that stuff? Probably not. It made sense to have someone else do it. So I think I've provided value to the company. They've kept me around, so
yeah, I'm sure you have. Okay, well let's dive into that trial. Sounds very stressful. Who was your husband or your mom at the Airbnb or something?
Yeah. So my mom actually flew out. My mom's in Washington, and I was in Montana at the time. Well, I still am in Montana, but a different part.
Yeah.
So she flew out. We drove, I think it was about 3 or 4 hours from Billings. We drove there. She stayed in the Airbnb with my 4-month-old all day. I missed her first rolling over. She did that while I was in court. But yeah, it was a construction defect trial that we ended up not having a successful outcome after all of that.
After all the sasacrifices.
Yeah, it was pretty frustrating. But I mean, obviously, anytime you have a trial, it's still a good experience to have. But yeah, I was like, this wasn't very much fun. I am not enjoying this anymore. I'd rather be at home with my baby.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you were looking for something that allowed you some more flexibility.
Yeah.
And they call that work-life balance. So has have you achieved that? Are you there?
I think I'm there. Now so we're fully remote now, and before it was hybrid. I was able to work from home, which is great, for working parents to be able to work
Right.
from home. If your kid's sick and you got to, like, I have a sick kid right now at home and I'm able to be here. Um, and if you want to go to the dance recitals and all that, you have more freedom to do that. But now, without that litigation component, I am able to I'm pretty much anything, if I have to, the kids have a random day off school, it's no big deal. I can move my schedule around. I can work because we have meetings, but I'm not having, 4-hour long hearings that I have to drive
Right.
hours for. I'm not, traveling as much, still a bit of travel, but it's usually a plane flight that's I know about well in advance. I'm not having to drive across Montana when there's a blizzard out. It's just, I think I've got more work-life balance. The house feels calmer.
Good.
um, I mean, obviously for lawyers, it's hard because we all, I think, just naturally put our work maybe higher than we should.
Yeah.
But I don't work a lot on the weekends. If I have to, it's usually, it's not common, and it's just a few hours, and it doesn't bother anyone, me or my family. So I think I think I'm in a good spot. Yeah.
So it sounds like you still work a lot. It's just you're able to manage it a little better.
Yeah. Like if someone's homesick or I've got something I got to take a half day for, if I still have work to do, I can do it in the evening, or I can do it, like over the weekend, or I can take it with me while I'm sitting in the parking lot while someone's in dance and doing some work in the car. It's a lot more easy to maintain.
And what are some ways that you work on maintaining? It sounds like you're pretty good at controlling your calendar. And then I guess the flexibility to do things anywhere is helpful.
Mhm.
Is anything else?
Um,
Not
I
doing litigation?
Not doing litigation. I think the other thing is like setting appropriate expectations for myself and what I can accomplish. Gone are the days of, working 10-hour days.
Yeah,
That's not, and maybe there will be a time when my kids are older that is the reality for me again. But right now that's not. If I do that, then I don't get to see them very much. So I think that setting realistic expectations, that was a hard shift going from litigation at a firm to being in-house. Is, I was used to married to watching my billable hours and
I
making sure
know.
I hit a certain number each day, or I wasn't going to make my quota for the month. And you start doing all this math about hours.
I've
And
been there.
yeah, I think most people, anyone who's been in a firm gets that. So that was a hard thing. It took me probably 6+ months of being in-house to not be super wound up about how much time I was spending on things, and instead
Right.
focusing more on the output, and focusing more on how am I making other people have more time, because other folks in the company obviously do have billable hours. That's how most professional companies make money.
Uh-huh.
So freeing up their time to do more billable work is something that I'm like, okay, I can see that I took this off this person's plate, and now they can spend 6 more hours on whatever project. So
Great.
just sort of shifting what my understanding of the value I'm bringing is. That's been very important since moving from that billable hour litigation machine to an in-house position.
I love that. That's great. Let's segue over just to the aerospace industry. So, like, how do you bullish on the industry? How you feel about it? You love it?
Yeah, I mean, so it's I guess when you think of the aerospace industry, it's sort of, you've got aviation and space.
Yeah.
Um, I have been interested in the space industry from a very young age. My dad's an aerospace engineer, and most of our family vacations were
Yeah.
space oriented, or we always had a space component. So it's always been interesting to me. And in law school, I participated in the Manfred Lax moot court. It's a
Okay.
space moot court
Oh,
competition.
nice.
Yeah, the International Institute of Space Law puts it on every year.
Okay.
And I was at the University of Washington for law school, and we got the first ever team. I had a really cool mentor. He actually wrote the space law textbook.
That's cool.
Professor Larson, he came and coached us, which was just a super cool experience. He's, kind of a big name in the space law industry. He was great. So that kind of got me interested in sort of the issues that are facing, space law and
Right.
the space and being in space and exploring space. So that got me interested. And then when I got out of law school, there weren't a lot of opportunities.
Right.
I had planned to move to Montana. And so I sort of put it on the back burner. But when I started doing work for SEE, I was like, oh, this is sort of my way to scratch that itch, I guess, so to speak. And then now I'm actually really lucky because we're starting to get into more of the space diplomacy type work. My company is joining with Meridian International, which is a policy entity in DC, to start up a group to help connect small to medium-sized space companies in the U.S. with companies or governments from other countries to sort of increase space diplomacy and keep the U.S. as, a leader in the space industry. So that's something I'm really interested in. You've got a lot of other interesting things going on with international law and space, and some countries agreeing to certain treaties and not to others. And then we've got the Artemis Accords that the U.S. has gotten a lot of folks to sign on to, which is sort of in place of the Moon Agreement that not a lot of the big folks, the big players signed on to back in the 60s or the 70s. So yeah, it's just a very interesting industry. And with any, new tech, new industry, the law is way behind. So trying to help you catch up.
Right. Does it make a huge difference for you to be working in an industry that you're passionate about?
Yeah, I get a lot of fulfillment when I see a contract I worked on, 3-4 years ago, and then that customer's mission actually makes it into space. You're just like, this is cool. I don't get the reward of winning a summary judgment or winning a trial or whatever. I don't get those, those are the wins that that lawyers really fight for, and you get a lot of, career fulfillment out of. Professional fulfillment. For me now, it's kind of turned into seeing a successful mission fly that I've, obviously I'm not doing any of the technical work, but you got to have a contract to make that stuff happen. So yeah.
Right. I think uniformly, we as attorneys, we love helping people. We love helping businesses, and we can see a business succeed and we're part of it. It's awesome. We just love that.
Yeah.
So you're talking about this space law and everything, and the law being behind and all this. How do you stay on top of any of that to the extent you need to?
Well, I'm a member of the International Institute of Space Law, which is an international organization that sort of helps to set the law on the international stage. So I part of that. So I see what's going on with them just, through that connection. LinkedIn is huge. I never really used LinkedIn when I was litigating. But now I'm on LinkedIn constantly, just
awesome.
looking at, space news, space law, following, connecting with people in the industry to kind of see what the topics are. And the other thing that's happening is a lot of the technical space conferences, of which there are many, they've started to add a space law component. So in April, I'm headed to Colorado Springs to attend a conference, and they have a whole day on space law. Fun. So that's a big thing. And then the ABA also has an Air and Space Forum, and they usually do a couple of different in-person CLE meetings a year where they'll cover, updates and that sort of thing. So space law is, a combination of a lot of different laws. You've got international, there's like radio frequency laws.
Okay.
obviously just general liability laws, torts, and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's a lot to keep up with, but that's what I found is the best way to do it is the social networking actually.
Right. Well, those are great tips. That's great advice. And yeah, LinkedIn's amazing. And it sounds like you're a part of a really interesting industry and you clearly love it. And thanks for sharing your experience and how you got there and how your life's different now and what you like and what makes you tick. We appreciate having you on the show today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.